Okay, hello there. So for this Fearless Fridays, I'm here with Janice, who I met at the 7 and 7 Digital Nomad Conference. You were speaking, Janice, as was I, at the conference back in October in Barcelona. So why don't we dive straight in? I'd love to ask you what were you doing before and what are you doing now?
What was I doing before? I was doing a multitude of sins. I used to work in a casino. I used to be a tax consultant. I used to work for a conglomerate in the HR department. So I did that. And what do I do now? I'm a career management for introverts. I help introverts take the next step in their career, whatever it might be, getting a new job, getting a promotion, or starting off on their own.
Wonderful. We'll dig into that a little bit in a moment. But it sounds like you've done some different jobs. Have you had then several different career transitions, would you say? Or is this sort of latest one the biggest step? What would you say?
I've done a lot of different things just because I was open to opportunity.
Hmm.
I worked in casinos for a long time, actually quit, got a day job, and then ended up being back in casinos, but in the sort of HR department because even though there were lots of administrative managers who knew a lot about admin and office management and that sort of thing, they just didn't have the background in casinos, and they're a funny old world. And so I got the job because I had the background in casinos, but not necessarily in admin. And then they paid for me to get training, so I was okay with that. And so that's how I ended up in HR. And the other things meant because I moved country a couple times, and so that helped me do different things. And so, but this one is more. This is along the same lines because it's all HR based. It's just that it took me all this time to figure out I was an introvert, and I've been doing mentoring for the longest while, and so this was just a natural extension of that.
So was there a conscious choice there to start up a business on your own? What was sort of the decision point, I suppose, or the trigger?
The trigger was there's two triggers because it came in two stages. One, I was working for that conglomerate, and they let me work from home, which meant I was more productive, got more done.
Yeah.
But it also meant they didn't have enough work for me because I'd asked for more work, and they were like, "No, no, just get paid." And so I
Okay.
got bored, and therefore I started looking for other things, and I started doing a side thing on my own, and then I left that company to work for myself. But this particular part, as far as working with introverts, came from working again with another company, but freelancing, and they were taking up so much of my time that I didn't have time for myself. And as much as I was a freelancer, they didn't really understand that and made you feel like an employee. And so there came a point where I was in Hong Kong. It was midnight. Of course, this was the one time that the internet went down, and I was scrabbling out of my hostel to go to the airport because I knew the airport had Wi-Fi, just to make this one like 30-minute meeting where they would complain that the connection wasn't good, and it was the cutoff point for me. I was like, why am I doing this? Is it worth this stress? So I stopped, and even during that time, I'd been doing workshops on introversion and networking for introverts, and held meetups in different countries. So it was a sign for me to concentrate on that and not let other things control my life.
Oh, amazing. And I guess it sounds like then you've been on the move quite a bit, and of course living the so-called digital nomad lifestyle. So was there a moment at which you was there a decision point or a trigger there when you began to travel, which I guess predates the introvert business?
It, there was no, I didn't even know digital nomad was a thing. I worked from home from a lot of companies. And then as far as traveling was concerned, I always traveled even as a kid. But now I have friends all dotted all over the world. So it was just an excuse to go and visit them because now I could work remotely. And then I discovered this whole digital nomad thing. But I'm not your traditional digital nomad because I have a home base. And so some people consider I'm not a purist in that sense. Um, but
Mudblood, I think, would be the technical term
yeah,
there. I think it's
yeah,
when you're both, right? I think I'm the same. Maybe it's the location independent definition we should hold on to, right? Because you
that's it.
can travel if you wanted to,
Yes.
and you
And
do. And you're in Mexico right now, I believe. So there you
I
go.
am in Mexico
Yeah,
right now. Yes.
great. Okay, and what were the challenges along these many twists and turns, I suppose, either in terms of, coming up with this idea or taking the plunge to make this into a full-time job, or, what kind of challenges have you come up against during the various transitions?
Challenges. That's a really good question. One is because a lot of my friends, especially in the past, definitely don't do anything of this nature. They work for a lot of big companies. They go to work, they work overtime, they don't get paid for it, and then they come home. Or I have a lot of friends who are in the medical community. And so I can't talk to them. I can't be like, hey, so this thing about this other thing, because it just doesn't make sense. And I've always been that person that does stuff by themselves. I'm a bit of a loner. Don't ask for help, which has become better. 7 and 7, thank you. You've changed my little world. And so now I have accountability buddies and various things. So that's been useful. And I don't have one. I have one for like my book writing and one for business and one for like other things, because everyone's different and everyone has a different viewpoint and things to look at. The other barriers, I guess, have been, even though I am British, and I have a British passport, I do live in Mexico. And so not having a British bank account, a British address, or any of those things that can be helpful to do things like set up a Stripe account. It's not in Mexico. It's not a thing. Shopify, if I was to set up an e-commerce site, to get like the back end working, there's so many things that you need that are more helpful if you have a British, American, Canadian bank account. Like having a Mexican bank account does nothing for you in these things. So there have been some back end sort of issues. And the other thing is mainly the misconceptions that introverts and extroverts, or just people in general, have about introversion and what it is, and why they may or may not need help. I think those have been the main things. I'm sure there's other stuff comes up.
And is your business registered officially in Mexico then?
So it can't be.
Okay.
So Mexico hasn't really realized right now at the stage of that people earn money online, and it doesn't come into like, even if I had an office, for example, which would be a waste of money for me because I'm not here, they don't understand sort of like the PayPal thing. PayPal have only just opened up an office in Mexico, I think 6 months ago. And so I'll be like, hey, and they're like, no, we don't know what to do with you. Can you just, you have a house. That's all we need right now.
Okay.
So yes, it's definitely been interesting. And so I've registered elsewhere because that's just the way.
Okay, so the whole business setup sounds like it's a bit more complicated when you don't quite have the traditional residency and so on.
And not only that, you'd have to pay for an accountant every single month, whether you make money or not. You have to pay for an accountant to go and do your books and go to the hacienda and do all of these other things. And getting a bank account, you can only get a bank account if you are an employee. If you are not an employee, you can't open a bank. So luckily, I used to be an employee, so I have a bank account. But if I tried to get one now...
Okay, so some specific challenges related to being an entrepreneur actually in Mexico. That's quite interesting.
Yes.
Okay, great. And you mentioned, perhaps your existing friends, I suppose, weren't quite sort of doing the same things as you, and also there you were asking for help, I guess, thanks to the Nomad conference. How were you able to ask for help, or where did you get the help you needed through these various transitions and twists and turns?
Those transitions, twists and turns, no help. That was just me. I do have like one friend who's like a techie guy, so he's my go-to website person, or my thing's broken or exploded, please help. Apart from that, I've had mentors along the way occasionally, but mainly I've done it the wrong way. This is not the way to do it. I've done it all by
good
myself.
Warning.
Yeah, all by myself, reading stuff, looking at stuff, trying stuff out, failing, some of it going well, some of it not. Don't do it. Don't do it that way. Don't. Don't.
That's a good warning there. You can do it, right? It just takes longer. Exactly. It's more painful. Okay. And then in terms of your lifestyle now and working, well, I guess you have, you've sort of created a community for yourself almost because you work with these introverts specifically. Has that given you support in the sense of networking with people like you in that sense?
No, I wouldn't say it has. The people that I network with more are other entrepreneurs right now. And so that's been different. And it hasn't been introverts. It's been a mixture of extroverts and introverts that I've now connected with. But the community I have, as far as like the introverts I help, they're employees. They're not entrepreneurs.
Okay.
So for them, it's a very different world. And it's kind of nice because in the entrepreneur world, you see all the same faces all the time in the same groups, and so it can get a little much, for me anyway. It can get a little much.
Really?
So
You mean specifically in Mexico, or?
no, I mean online in like Facebook.
Okay.
Here in Mexico, introversion isn't a thing. I mean, obviously it exists, but generally in Mexico, the culture isn't about introversion. It's about going out, being family orientated, drinking, partying, and it's that way inclined, which means anyone who is an introvert doesn't stand a chance, or just gets pushed into looking like an extrovert just to make people happy.
Okay.
So
Okay,
no, I do not have Mexican clients.
No, fair enough. Okay, so I almost want to ask you, why are you living in Mexico?
The house and the weather,
the pool,
and the money.
Yeah. Okay, no, fair enough. No, fair enough. I don't need to ask that question, but it just sounds like there's quite a few specific challenges to living there with the culture and the economics.
That's why I travel. That's why I travel.
Best of both worlds. So what is the best part of the work that you do, the lifestyle you lead, the travel? Pick your favourite part.
It's helping people, and it's funny. You kind of go through the self-doubt thing, and then you have that one conversation with someone, and you help them through something, and you're like, yeah, I helped them do that, and it's wonderful.
Amazing,
and you go out and you feel good about it, or someone says something, or someone tags you in something and says, Janice helped me do this, or I did, whatever it is. That's been the good thing. As far as the lifestyle, it was an accident. I didn't set out to be like, I want to be a digital nomad. I need to do all of it. No, I didn't start out that way. For me, my lifestyle is, yes, I get to work online, which is great. And I've done a traditional like HR. A lot of my background is HR, so recruiting and all of that I've done online, and people find that very confusing because they think HR has to be on site. And the travel is because I like to travel and I have friends and I get to stay for free, and I'm lucky that way. I don't see it as, I know a lot of people aspire to I want to do the digital nomad thing or the location independent thing, without realizing it means that even if you are in a beautiful place, you still have to work. And you have to balance that time between, hey, I want to go out and drink all the sangria, to, I actually have like client meetings for 3 hours. It's one of those things that and people want things to happen fast. They want that's what is it, that 6-figure launch, or all
yes, drives me crazy.
that I'm so not into. It takes time, and it takes experimenting on what works for you, what doesn't work for you, finding the right way of working, finding your best hours of work. It's just about knowing yourself, and that's just an ongoing journey. So what's the best thing about it? It's getting better, but it's always going to be a work in progress, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, well, I love that. And it's so true that people sort of are attracted, I suppose, by the shiny veneer of social media pictures of, for me, it's the pina colada. In my case, it's personal preference, but, on the beach, laptop, a couple of emails, boom, that's it. And as you say, it is hard work, incredibly fulfilling and rewarding, as you were just sharing, in terms of the type of work you're doing, you're learning, meeting people, traveling and so on. But it's by no means sort of that grass is green on the other side. All your problems will fall into place and everything will be hunky-dory. Your 6-figure launch tomorrow is the other piece of that, isn't it? It's the speed.
Yeah. And you know what, thinking about that, one of the issues that we just don't talk about enough is, so what happens when we retire? Do people have retirement plans? Do people know what they're going to do? And it's something that just never gets talked about because, well, I have my 6-figure launch. I'll take that 6 figures and it'll magically sort out the rest of my life. And we might not always be able to use computers. We might get carpal tunnel. We might, stuff happens. And most people don't have insurance. Most people haven't thought about that end goal thing, and I think it's an area in digital nomadism or in location independent that just kind of gets forgotten in the background. And then because it's this generation that have kind of got it, it's going to hit in another 20 years and then see what happens.
That's a really interesting point, and it's an important one. And I think, again, we have that shiny, simple, and I have done that myself, I'll just quit my job and everything will be, perfect and wonderful. And it has been, but as you say, it's hard work, and you have to, the financial management, it's not sexy, but you do need to sit down. I mean, I have asked for help. I work with now an accountant, and I have a mentor, coach. It is, I don't want to say hard work, but, as you said, it's really financial planning. I don't think we will retire, and certainly we won't be allowed to when we're 65 or so, right? We have to work until we're 80, 85, I think is the latest figure. But certainly, as you said, thinking about, okay, what does this look like? Are you saving money? Are you only traveling around, spending it all? And are you, it's very difficult balance, because I also think this idea of experiences over things, living now rather than delaying your life until you're retired, because that's the extreme. But I guess there's so many options between the binary work in a corporate job you hate until you retire and die, or risk everything and live a life of digital nomadism with no pension. I suppose there's a lot of shades between those two extremes, I guess, is the point. And it's about crafting whatever that perfect career and lifestyle looks for you, but recognizing, as you say, there are certain needs and sort of imperatives, I suppose, in terms of keeping you and your family potentially safe as well, if you've got dependents to look after as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Some important questions. So with that in mind, you've given a few words of warning there. You've told us not to do what you did. What advice would you give in terms of, perhaps either looking back to where you were, what you would have done differently, or just now, if someone does find this, somewhat accidental, I suppose, work and lifestyle in your case appealing, what words of wisdom would you like to share with people watching?
I've made it sound terrible.
This is where you pull it back. You can make it sound great again.
It's fulfilling. It's rewarding. Be open to change.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people get stuck on the smaller details, like the website and the logo and the colors and everything else. Just do it, because you don't know if people want these things unless you go out there and ask if they want it and try it. And so, don't get in love with one idea and then get so narrow and focused in it that you're not open to anything else. Because I think that happens a lot. People are like, I want to do this, or I want to be a VA for this. And then they realize they hate it, or they get bad clients, or they get so stuck in the minutia that they don't realize that there's other things that they could do, or other areas that people need help in. And so they get stuck and married to an idea. Don't do it. Just think of it as a way of supporting yourself. Yes, you want to like it to a certain degree, but don't turn your hobby into your job, because then you will hate your hobby. Doesn't work that way. Other words of wisdom: get help, ask for help, ask for people. Don't expect everything to be free. There's a lot of things out there right now where people are much like, you have to give value and you have to do this and you have to do the other. But there's that fine line between giving value and then just giving everything away for free, because then people don't respect the value that you are bringing if they get everything for free. I know a lot of people might not appreciate that.
Well, there's sort of two sides to that piece of advice, isn't there? Both as a coach, and certainly I do that too. I have lots of free content out there, and I love it because it means that people who can't afford to work with me have that content, which is nice to be able to reach a broader audience, and also to allow people to get to know, like, and trust me, as they always say in marketing terms, and then to potentially then feel that I am a good fit and so on. But you're right, I do get a lot of people who just want to chat, or I'll just follow up with you on Skype and WhatsApp. No, please.
All of these questions.
It's very like, I'd love to help you, but so from our perspective, but I suppose the advice that you were giving there also is, don't expect people to help you for free as well. So perhaps also be willing to invest. What kind of help specifically are you talking about here? What would you say were the biggest gaps, or would have been the biggest helps for you over the years, do you think?
For me, get someone to do your website for you. Just suck it up. If you want a website, just get someone to do it for you. But have a very clear idea of what you want. There's nothing worse than people asking vague questions. And that's why Facebook is called Vague Book, because people are like, I have this thing, help. And it's like, we need details. We can't actually help you unless you give details. Website, social media, like anything that you hate doing or are not good at. Learn it to a degree so you know when you're being ripped off, but then outsource it, and it will save time, money, stress, all sorts of things. And I know it's hard when you're first starting, because most people will start from nothing or whatever, but no,
that's great to do. I mean, there are so many free, or not free, but cheaper platforms, and you can start small. As you said, really important to learn, wear all those different entrepreneurial hats at the beginning, but then also there's Fiverr, you can do stuff for $5, you can get someone a bit more expensive as you evolve and so on. And as you say, outsourcing, that's a lesson I learned too late as well, but I'm working on it. I'm getting there. More and more is getting outsourced, and it's liberating. So
Well, also because we're in love with what we do and we want
Yes.
to like be in control of all the little parts. We don't trust anyone. And the sooner we let go of that and just let the machine run, the easier it is for us to focus on the bigger picture or the strategy or whatever it is that we want.
Yeah.
Or just working with your VIP clients and give them more time and to content create, because it frees up your mind to do other things. Because there's only so many decisions that we can make per day before we kind of like frazzle. And all of these little things about which picture should I use and what font do I need to, all decisions that, yeah, they're nice, yeah, they're kind of important, but in the grander scheme of things, like, no.
That's so true. And you always do those easy things on your to-do list, don't you? Like, I've just been creating lots of thumbnails from YouTube, which is completely pointless today, but I was a little bit tired. I thought, what can I do? Oh, I know. And that's sort of, it's a full sense of productivity, isn't it? Whereas actually I could have very easily outsourced that or not done it at all. So I think you're right, actually freeing up that sort of decision-making power to work on important business development and helping your clients and so on. That's a great piece of advice as well. So before I leave you, I'd love to hear a bit more about what exactly do you do? So you say you work with, actually, how do you work as HR non-office dependent, I suppose? Enlighten us as to the future here. What are you doing with your clients?
Well, actually, my HR background helps me with my clients. So what I do is I help any introvert, be honest, introverts who are looking to change career, get a promotion, or start their own business. Simply because there's a lot of bad management out there. There's a lot of not knowing or wanting to be seen and being put in the spotlight. Basics of sort of having your LinkedIn profile being okay. Because if you've worked for the same company for 5 years, you know your LinkedIn profile has not been updated. Yeah. So I help people get those basics and get the skills they need for public speaking, how to communicate up with your boss or your peers, communicating your introversion and your actual needs and wants without being like ashamed of it or thinking it's weird. And then that will put you in a better position to get your promotion or change careers or whatever it is that you want to do. And so I help people do that.
Great. And presumably that cuts across sort of demographics. That's all sorts of ages, really. It's more to do with the personality or tendencies.
Yes. Most people, it seems to be that they've figured out they're an introvert later in life. They're stuck in a job and they're like, I need to get out. Seems to be my client. I do get a lot of people who are interns or just starting out as well, who want advice on how to get an internship or like how to develop their career in the right way so they don't get
that's great. Good for them, yeah.
kind of thing. And so it's definitely a range, but it tends to be sort of executive level and up because they're rich managers and they want that VP spot, but they just can't quite get there because they're being told that you don't network enough or you're not with the right people, we don't see you as visible, we don't see you as a leader. And not because they're not capable of it, but just because the language that their manager speaks and the language that they speak tends to be a little different.
Yeah. That's super clear and sounds really powerful. So if someone recognises themselves in this description, where can they reach you? Where can they find out more about how you might be able to help them?
Best place is my website, thecareerintrovert.com. And to be honest, on any social media network, if you put in the Career Introvert, I'm going to pop up.
Amazing.
So on Facebook, LinkedIn, I'm Janice Chaka, the Career Introvert, and YouTube, the Career Introvert. But yeah, all over. But my podcast is called The Traveling Introvert, which is slightly different because I got to get some travel in there because, yeah, that's kind of what I do.
That's sort of your business excuse for traveling. It's like, yeah, I have a podcast. I need to talk about it.
Well, no, I'm going to a couple conferences this year because of it. I get to speak at one, so it's all good.
Yeah. I'm just, I've been asking the last few people in the interviews because I find this quite interesting, especially with these sort of quite unusual, I suppose, profiles. What do you call yourselves if someone says, and what do you do? That's a typical question. Or like, where do you pigeonhole yourself?
I try not to.
Yes.
Hate the pigeon. I actually really hate that question. What do I say? I'm a career manager for introverts, and I also help podcasters become authors.
Excellent. That's a great little elevator pitch, as they say. And would you? And I know, again, this is where it's hard. But in terms of, do you feel like you're an entrepreneur? Are you a consultant? Are you freelance? Do you have a portfolio career? Sort of, are any of those appealing to you at all?
People have called me many things. Apparently, I'm an entrepreneur. I don't know. It's probably the wrong answer. This is obviously not the answer I should be giving. I should be like, I am this. I just help people. That's kind of it.
Yeah.
So I put founder. I think on my LinkedIn profile it says founder of the Career Introvert. Yes, I could be because I'm a coach. I guess I would say is the closest thing. It depends. Different people call me different things as of what I am in their life to them.
But I love that summary that you had there, and as you said, you respond to the person you're talking to, don't you, and make the response relevant to them. So don't worry. Yes. But thank you so much, Janice, for your time. Thank you for sharing a bit about your journey, and I'm sure there'll be people interested in getting in touch with you as well. So thank you so much for your time.
You are very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.